So are you ready for this one? Because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Andrew Tate.
Oh, yeah. I've been looking forward to this one.
Specifically, we're going to try to figure out how he built his fortune and this huge online following he's got.
Right, because it really is massive.
Yeah. So, the guy, former kickboxer, he was even on Big Brother at one point.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And now he's this super controversial influencer with opinions that just seem to get everyone talking.
Well, they certainly get people riled up.
Yeah, for sure. So from what I've seen, his business ventures are all over the place.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating to me. We're talking about everything from webcam studios to these online courses he's selling. And the claims that he's made about his wealth are, well, let's just say they've raised some eyebrows, even among industry experts.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack for sure.
It is.
And that's exactly what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Not to judge his views or anything, but to just figure out how he managed to build this empire, especially online.
Right, exactly. We're going to dissect the business strategies, the tactics, the whole playbook.
Yeah, so before we even get into the online stuff, let's go back to the very beginning.
Right.
Our sources mentioned his kickboxing career. First and foremost, he's a 4-time world champion.
Yeah.
Which is not too shabby.
No, that's impressive, definitely. But one source estimates that even a champion kickboxer maybe only earns around $100,000 per fight.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to factor in all the expenses like training travel managers, taxes, and then the fact that you're not fighting every week.
Right, of course.
So it's not exactly a guaranteed path
No.
to becoming a multimillionaire.
Yeah, definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, not at all.
And it seems like Tate realized that pretty quickly because the sources say that's when he decided to pivot, retire from kickboxing, and just go all in on business.
Yeah. And it's that mindset shift that I find really interesting. He talks about applying that same discipline and focus he had in the ring to the business world.
Oh, I see.
And I think that's a really valuable lesson for anyone, no matter what field they're in.
Yeah, I agree. Focus is key.
Absolutely.
So the first thing he tries is actually pretty surprising to me. He starts this company, T2 Television, focused on TV advertising.
Yeah, and according to one source, it actually made $1 million in its first year.
Whoa.
Yeah, but the business eventually folded. But it just goes to show you that entrepreneurial drive was there from the beginning.
Yeah, he clearly had that ambition.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the kickboxer turned entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But how does he go from this failed TV advertising company to, everything that he's doing now?
That is where things get really interesting because the next chapter is the webcam business.
Yes, the webcam business.
This is really what launched him to a whole new level, though there is some debate about just how much money he was actually making from it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the sources kind of paint a mixed picture there.
Right, it's where the waters get a little murky.
Mm.
Tate himself claims that at its peak, he had 75 women working for him across 4 locations, bringing in $600,000 a month.
Wait, $600,000 a month?
That's what he says.
Just from webcams.
That's his claim, but when you actually look at what industry experts are saying, the numbers don't quite add up.
Okay.
Maria Borghina, for example, who runs one of the largest webcam companies in Romania, she estimates that even the most successful models likely type out around $50,000 per month.
Wow, that is a pretty significant difference.
Yeah.
So already we're seeing this gap between what Tate claims and what other people who are actually in the industry are experiencing.
Right, and it's not just the income claims that are raising eyebrows. There's also the business model itself.
Oh, okay.
So Romanian authorities are alleging that Tate and his brother used something they call the lover boy method to recruit women.
The lover boy method? What is that?
So it basically involves building this romantic relationship with a woman, without ever mentioning the webcam business up front.
Oh, wow. And then once she's emotionally invested, then she's introduced to the business and encouraged to participate.
Oh, that's pretty manipulative.
Yeah, it's a tactic that's been flagged by authorities because it raises concerns about exploitation and coercion.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are those allegations about the working conditions, 204-7 surveillance rules against leaving the residences, and even potential mental and physical pressure to perform.
Right. It's a whole other layer to the story.
Yeah.
It's important to note, though, that Tate and his brother deny all of these allegations.
Of course.
And the investigation is still ongoing. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But regardless of the outcome, the controversy surrounding the webcam business was definitely a pivotal point in Tate's journey.
It definitely put him on the map, for better or for worse.
For sure.
But it also seems like it was kind of a crash course in building an online business.
Right.
I mean, he was dealing with operations, logistics, managing people, and navigating the complexities of this whole online world. Yeah, and literally exposed him to the darker side of the internet, too. Learning how to exploit algorithms and push the boundaries of what's acceptable online.
Right.
And these are all skills he would later use to build his online empire.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we're starting to see how the pieces fit together.
Right.
The webcam business, as controversial as it was, might have been the stepping stone he needed to build what came next.
It provided him with capital experience and perhaps most importantly, a taste for the power of these online platforms.
So now the question is, how did he use that experience to build his brand and attract millions of followers? And how did you turn those followers into actual paying customers?
That's what we'll dive into next, and trust me, it gets even more fascinating.
I can't wait.
Buckle up.
Okay, so we've established that Tate built this huge following online. But how did he actually turn that online attention into cold, hard cash?
Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah, because views and followers don't exactly pay the bills.
Nope, they don't. He needed a way to monetize all that attention.
Yeah. And one of his key strategies, which is something we see a lot in the online world, is affiliate marketing.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly is affiliate marketing?
Sure. So think of it like this big network of promoters.
Okay.
So Tate would give his most dedicated followers or affiliates access to exclusive content, things like special podcast episodes, videos, behind the scenes, stuff like that.
Okay.
And then those affiliates would share little snippets of that content on their own social media channels, to try and drive traffic back to Tate's platforms.
Ah, I see. So they're basically like an army of promoters.
Exactly. They're spreading his message and his brand to a much wider audience, and the sources actually suggest it was incredibly effective.
Yeah, I can see how that would work if you've got thousands or even millions of people sharing your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's like free organic advertising that just keeps growing and growing.
It's a really powerful strategy, especially when you have a figure like Tate who's so polarizing.
Right.
People either love him or hate him, and that strong emotion that really drives engagement online. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did he incentivize these affiliates to do all this promoting for him?
Well, he offered them a cut of any sales they generated.
Okay.
So the more successful they were at getting people to buy Tate's products, the more money they make. So it created this built-in motivation for his followers to spread his message.
That's pretty clever. So what kinds of products was he actually selling? Was this all tied into that Hustlers University thing we keep hearing about?
Yeah, Hustlers University, which later kind of morphed into the real world, that was a big piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
That was like his flagship online education platform.
What kind of stuff did he teach in these courses?
It was a real mix of topics, everything from cryptocurrency trading to e-commerce, copywriting, stock market strategies, basically anything related to making money online.
So he was teaching people how to get rich using the same tactics that he used.
That was the main selling point. He positioned himself as this self-made millionaire who had cracked the code to success.
Right.
And he was willing to share all his secrets for a price, of course.
And people actually bought into it.
Oh, they did in huge numbers, actually, according to our sources. The real world had over 200,000 active students at one point, each paying a monthly subscription fee of $49.99.
Whoa. So that's almost $10 million a month in revenue just from subscriptions.
That's right. And that's not even counting the affiliate marketing revenue sales of individual courses or any other products he was selling. It was a massive operation.
It really was. But hold on. Didn't we talk earlier about how he got banned from all these major platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the whole 9 yards?
Right.
How did he keep making money if he couldn't reach his audience?
Well, that's what makes this story even more interesting. The platform bans might have actually helped him in a way.
What?
Yeah, because all the media coverage around his removal, it just fueled public interest and curiosity.
Oh, so it kind of backfired on the platforms.
Exactly. It's like the Streisand effect in action.
The Streisand effect. What's that?
It's this phenomenon where trying to suppress something, especially online, just makes it more well-known.
Oh.
It totally backfires.
So by trying to silence him, those platforms accidentally gave him even more publicity.
Exactly. And Tate was smart enough to capitalize on all that attention. He moved his content to these alternative platforms like Rumble, where he reportedly signed a $9 million deal.
Wow.
And his followers, many of whom felt like he was being unfairly censored, they all followed him.
Wow. It's amazing how he turned adversity into an advantage, almost like he was playing chess, always thinking several moves ahead.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it really highlights another aspect of his strategy. He understood the power of controversy.
Yeah.
He pushed boundaries, he provoked reactions. He knew that would keep him in the headlines and keep people talking about him.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky strategy, but clearly it worked.
It did.
So we've got this massive online education platform, this army of affiliates pushing his content, and this uncanny ability to use controversy to his advantage. What else contributed to his success?
Well, he's also a master of branding. He cultivated this very specific image, the alpha male, the self-made millionaire, the guy who doesn't care what others think.
So he wasn't just selling courses, he was selling a lifestyle persona.
Exactly. And for a certain audience that was incredibly appealing, he showcased his wealth, the fast cars, the lavish lifestyle, the beautiful women.
Right.
And he presented it as something attainable. If you followed his advice, you could have it all.
It's like the classic get-rich-quick scheme, but repackaged for the digital age.
In a way, yes, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think he tapped into something deeper, that desire for success, for financial freedom, even a sense of belonging.
Right.
And he gave people a blueprint, even if it was a flawed one, for how to achieve those things.
So it sounds like he kind of created this perfect storm of online success, right? The affiliate marketing, the online courses, the branding, the calculated use of controversy, it all just came together.
He certainly seemed to have mastered the game, at least for a time, but as with any story this big, this bold, there's another side to consider.
You're right.
The allegations against him are serious, and we need to explore those.
Okay.
So next we'll examine those controversies and try to unpack the ethical considerations of his business empire.
Yeah, you're right. The accusations of exploitation, coercion, the questionable business practices, especially around that webcam business, we can't just gloss over that.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've seen how Andrew Tate built this huge online empire, but we've also hinted at a darker side to this story. A lot of his business practices, especially with that webcam operation, are facing some serious scrutiny.
Yeah, and I think that raises some important questions about the ethics of online business in general. When you have this much influence, this much reach, what responsibility comes with that?
Yeah, because let's be honest, a lot of his success came from pushing boundaries, exploiting loopholes, almost like he was playing this game where the rules were still being written.
Exactly. And some of the specific examples we've seen in the sources are definitely cause for concern. Remember that lover boy method we discussed earlier? Yeah. That's a tactic that really preys on vulnerability, and it's something that authorities are taking very seriously.
Yeah, and then there were the claims about the working conditions and those webcam residences, restricting the women's movements, the constant monitoring, the alleged pressure to stay in the business, even if they wanted to leave.
Right. And it's important to remember that Tate denies these allegations.
Right.
And the investigation is still ongoing.
Of course.
But the fact that these accusations exist at all, it raises questions about the potential for exploitation in this kind of online business.
It makes you wonder, where's the line between aggressive business strategy and something that's actually harmful?
That's a question we need to be asking more and more as the online world grows. It's so easy to get caught up in the pursuit of success, the drive for more followers, more money, that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Especially when you're dealing with platforms that are constantly changing, where the rules are still being figured out.
Right. It creates this gray area, ethically speaking, and Tate's story is a prime example of how that can play out.
But it's not just about legal boundaries, right? There's also the whole issue of his message, his persona, this alpha male ideology, the focus on wealth and dominance. It's been criticized for being misogynistic and promoting a pretty toxic view of masculinity.
And that raises another crucial question. What responsibility do influencers have for the content they put out into the world, especially when you consider how many followers they have, many of whom are young and impressionable?
Yeah, it's a tricky issue. On the one hand, you have freedom of speech, the right to express yourself, but on the other hand, words have power. And when you have a platform that reaches millions of people, there's a certain responsibility that comes with that.
Right. Tate has argued that he's just being honest, speaking truths that others are afraid to say, but his critics argue that his words have real-world consequences, that they contribute to a culture that devalues and harms women.
Yeah, it's a complex debate, and it's not going away anytime soon.
No, it's not, and it's something we all need to be thinking about, especially as online influence continues to grow.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what can we take away from all of this? What does Andrew Tate's story tell us about the world we live in?
I think the biggest takeaway is to be critical of what you see online. Don't just blindly accept someone's message because they're rich or successful. Do your own research, question their motives, think critically about the impact of their words and actions.
It's like that old saying, don't believe everything you read on the internet.
Exactly. And remember that ethical considerations matter, whether you're running a business online or in the real world. Don't be tempted to cut corners or exploit others for your own. Gain success built on an unethical foundation is ultimately meaningless.
And maybe most importantly, be mindful of your own influence. Even if you don't consider yourself an influencer, we all have a platform these days, and our words and actions have ripple effects.
Well said. Tate's story, as controversial as it is a case study in both the power and the peril of online influence. It's a reminder that with great reach comes great responsibility, and that ethical considerations should never be an afterthought.
That's a powerful point to end on. This deep dive into the world of Andrew Tate has been a wild ride full of twists and turns, and definitely more than a few ethical gray areas. But it's also been incredibly eye-opening. It's shown us the potential and the pitfalls of building an online empire in this day and age.
And it leaves us with one final thought-provoking question. In a world where anyone can potentially build an online following and monetize their influence, what kind of impact do you want to make?
That is a great question to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.